and welcome to the Gothic Unicorn. Today I'm trying something a little different but sort of tied in to some of my recent-ish videos. Now, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you'll know that I love making things out of rubbish. I have done my own little series on Trash to Treasure, and this is going to tie in with that. I'm not focusing on one item this week though. After my challenge I did where I made 5 new miniatures from 5 different materials, I wondered if I could do the same thing with some trash items. So I have picked out 5 items that might otherwise go in the rubbish, and I'm going to attempt to make some kind of miniature treasure, hopefully involving at least 5 separate parts, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to begin by showing you the 5 items that I have selected for this make. The first bit is my favourite material of all. I've got a cereal box. I've always got cereal boxes to work from, and so we're going to start with one of those. Now, what actually gave me the idea for this was I saw this container in the recycling pile, and I thought, can I do something with that? And that's what I'm going to do. It needs a good clean out. You can tell I just pulled it out of the recycling pile, and I did try taking the label off so that I could see if it would work, because it was no good starting on this if the label was not going to come off. Then I've got some fabric scraps. Now, I'm not 100% sure if these are the fabric scraps I'm actually going to use. We're at that stage where everybody's wardrobe needs sorting out, and there's always clothes in there that aren't fit for donating. So I figured some fabric like that is something that, well, what else are you going to do with it? Actually, I have discovered that a local area, you can put it out with your recycling, allegedly. I haven't looked into that too much, but you can't do it where I'm living at the moment. So we're going to have some fabric. The next thing, when I was pulling these together yesterday, I was rather limited because I wanted some kind of green waste. Now, I've got some bits of twig that I'd already got in the craft room from previous projects, and I wanted to go and get some more bits, but it was raining. So, not wanting to use wet materials, I've sort of cheated a bit, and I have got some ready dried moss. I could have got some moss from the garden and dried it in the oven, but this will do at a push. I just want some greenery. And then finally, the 5th piece, I've got a foil tray. This is rather a big one, and it is actually pre-used, even though it might not look it, because they get used in this house for Lego trays. And actually, I've rescued this one before it got completely and utterly obliterated. But those are my 5 items, and I'm going to attempt to make something miniature using these. I've given my jar a good clean out and just got rid of any last remnants of the tea bags that it used to hold. And I've got this because this is actually going to be the base for my piece. I'm going to make a sort of miniature diorama again. I really enjoyed making the springtime one that I did, and I thought I could make something in this. And what I'm intending is that it will fit into there upside down, so it will look like a sort of a snow globe-y cloche type thing. Now I know I'm going to have to do something with the top and the side where there's some printed writing, and what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put something on the top and I'm going to have something hanging down so that I can cover it up, and I can cover it up on the other side by more of the same. My theme for this is, well, it's Jubilee. If I get all this done and get the video up at the right time, this will be going up during the celebrations for Queen Elizabeth II's 70th Jubilee. And I've seen lots of really cool miniature pieces that celebrate this, and I thought I'd have a go. Now, I could make anything I wanted in here. I did think in the first place I could make something almost like a gravestone in there, but I think I'm going to go for something a little more topical, but with a Gothic unicorn twist. So that's my aim. Let's see how I do. I am obviously going to be putting the base of my diorama into the lid of the jar. So what I've done is I have cut some circles. I've just cut a couple of circles that are about, I think they're about 2.5 inch in diameter. I've cut these with my die cutter, and that fits nicely inside the lid and allows me to still take the jar on and off. Now what I've done is I have glued the first one into there, and I have tried it with the jar to make sure that everything fits, because everything has got to be, everything within the diorama has got to fit within this circle. Now obviously I don't want everything, and I'm saying that word a lot, I don't want the substance of my diorama in the silver bit of the base, so I need to build it up. Now I could just cut loads of these and glue them up, but it would take quite a lot and I would probably waste quite a bit of my card doing that. So what I've done is, in addition to using the foil tray, which I'm going to use for a few pieces in a bit later on, I'm going to use a piece of kitchen foil. Now these are pieces that I consider to be scrap because they're too small to use in the kitchen, and I always seem to end up with bits left over. So I'm going to try and use this by rolling it and making sort of like a sausage to lift the second piece of cardboard up, so that when I finally put that on there, my diorama will be inside of the jar and quite visible. I'm going to be using hot glue for that, and this has just slowed me down no end because I don't use hot glue very often, and I couldn't find the glue gun. Then when I found the glue gun, there was no glue in it, and I've just turned this room upside down looking for glue sticks. I found some now, but I didn't think I was going to. So I'm going to mess with this, which is rather noisy, off camera, and then I'll show you how I get on. I ended up using 2 similar sized pieces of foil, and I've made my little sausages, and it almost fills the initial piece of cardstock. So I'm going to put a good amount of hot glue on the bottom. That's as much as I'm going to get out until I put some more glue in, and I'm going to push that down, And even though I put the glue on the bottom, the foil is hot on the top, so this is one thing to bear in mind. One of the reasons why I don't use hot glue all that often is because I've had a few nasty run-ins in the past, and I've actually got a scar, quite a nice scar on my hand. Now, I used ordinary glue for sticking the piece into the bottom of the lid, and I've just managed to ooze some out. I thought it had pretty much set, but obviously not. I'll just clean that up because I don't want it getting in the way of that. Now what I will probably do is, before I stick this piece onto the top, if I have a look at this when it's in there, I think I'm going to have to put something around there just to disguise the silver bit. And what I'll probably do is stick in place a little bit of moss just to sort of disguise it a bit. It's going to do the job quite admirably though, and I've got my lifted up base now, and that is far easier than using layer upon layer of cardstock. I have stuck some moss into place around the foil. It doesn't need to be perfect because it is just to sort of distract from the shininess of the silver, and I have coloured the unprinted side of my cereal box circle with a alcohol marker. It doesn't need to be perfect because that is going to be covered with moss as well. So I'm going to glue this into place, and then I'm going to look at finding something to make a bit of a tree. I'm aiming to do something that looks like a picnic blanket with maybe a little bit of food underneath it and some patriotic decoration of sort. It's going to be a lot smaller than 1/12 scale, obviously, to go in there. Probably maybe even a little bit smaller than 1/48 scale. We will see. But now if I get my glue gun going with my incredibly large stick of glue, which needs some assistance in getting into place. Lots of glue down there. I'll sort that out in a minute, and we'll pop this into place above the original one, and that's not going to go anywhere. And as long as I position this right when I put the lid on, yeah, I can make that work. So I've now got my platform. I want some kind of a tree on there, and I've only got a few sticks that are actually dry, because you don't want green sticks, and I want to know if I can actually get this one to work in there. Now, it may need trimming down a bit. I don't care if it goes all the way up to the top, because I'm thinking I can potentially, if I use this, hang some bunting from this branch. Now, if I pop it there and then try and get this over the top, it's not quite going to fit, so I'm going to have to cut that down, or I'll just break it off a bit. And if I put it something like that, so that's sort of at the back, I'm going to put a blob, a good sized blob of hot glue. And stick that into place. Now I'm going to have to hold this until the glue sets, and I'm going to look at sticking some more branches onto it using some of these other little bits to sort of change the appearance of it, so it's not just a single branch anymore. Hopefully I can do this. My tree, well, the basic outline of my tree is done, and it fits inside my jar, and I think that it's going to work quite well for what I want to do with putting some kind of bunting or something off it. So I need to now decorate the cardboard. Now, I was going to use moss, but I need to add some green to my tree, and I think I'm going to have to use the moss for that. So I'm going to use, on the base, I'm going to use some terrain scatter, which is left over from one of my projects. So I'm going to do that by applying some of my glue, and then I will have to let that dry, and then I will have to apply a coat of watered down PVA over the top just to seal it. So this is going to take a while. I'm going to do it off camera, but when you see it next, it'll look like grass. I have done the flocking for my ground, and it's looking pretty good. It's not perfect. I've had to go in and add some extra in as a touch-up because I got some big holes, but I think it'll do. Some of this extra does need going over with some watered down PVA, but it's taken all morning to dry the first lot off. So I want to actually get on with this piece. Now, while I was waiting for that to dry, I've actually prepared a picnic blanket cloth. I've just used a scrap of the fabric that I showed at the beginning, and what I did was I decided roughly how big I wanted it, and I put some glue around the outside of my fabric, waited for that to dry and then cut it out, and then I tried it on the base, and it was wet and it's picked up some of the green, but it won't be visible. Now, to just give it a bit more interest, I've put a bit of a fold in and glued it in, and I'm going to eventually glue this piece in place on here like so. So you're not going to see all of my ground, you're only going to see little bits of it, but I think that it'll just complete the look. So that's my little picnic, blanket, that's what I'm thinking of, cloth, whatever. And I'm going to make some little bits to go on there. Now, there is a big thing with this Jubilee, which is the big Jubilee lunch. Now, where they've done the big lunch initiatives before, it's been a charity thing, and about getting communities to get together. So they're sort of pushing it, the idea of people getting together and having a little picnic, a little party. Some people are having good old-fashioned street parties. There's pretty much not much happening where I live. Some of the little streets are doing their own thing, but there's nothing happening in general, which is quite frankly a shame. But it's the way it is. So I thought I'd do a commemorative picnic in miniature. The next thing I want to make is I want to make some kind of bunting. Because my jar is quite high, that's why I've gone for a tree, which I am going to add some foliage to shortly. And I want to add some bunting from the branches of the tree. I did want to use fabric, which is why I picked out fabric as one of my 5 things. But I've had a real problem finding any fabric in white, because I want red, white and blue. The best I could do was some sort of like a twill ribbon, which wasn't really in keeping. So that made me think, and I went and I raided my ribbon stash, and I found here 3 little ribbons that I think I can make some bunting from, and I've got the red, white and blue, and that's going to be great. They're perhaps a little bit big, but the size of bunting is subjective. Some of it will be a lot bigger than others. So I'm going to attempt to make a string of bunting to go from this branch to this branch, which I want to have in place before I add the foliage, so I can actually get it attached properly. and that's going to be my next trick. So I'm going to go now and try and figure out how I turn ribbon into miniature bunting. To turn my ribbon into bunting, I first needed some cotton. I've just used some sewing thread because I wanted something that wasn't too thick. This is obviously smaller than 12th scale. I'm not even sure what scale I'm working in. I'm just sort of winging it. And that seemed like the most obvious answer. And then what I did is I cut my ribbons into lengths that were longer than I wanted the bunting to be. I went for a pennant shape with the notch taken out of it. And to do that, all you do is you fold the end of your ribbon in two, you fold it down the middle, and then you just snip it off. If you snip it the other way, you can get a nice little triangular pennant, but I went for that. It seemed like the easiest way, and it meant I didn't have to actually glue all the edges of the ribbons. And then once I got them all done, I have glued them onto the string, folded the end of the ribbon over so that it's nice and secure, and a couple of them I had to use the iron just to set the glue a bit quicker. So with that in mind, this is what I've got. Now I don't know how well this is going to work because obviously it's moving, because it's not actually all attached to anything. It is actually capable of blowing in the breeze. And all that I did was I put glue on the twigs of my tree, and I wrapped the thread around it, and then I've cut it off once it's dried off a bit, and then I've got me a nice little string of red, white and blue bunting. So with that in mind, it's time to get on with my little picnic. I'm putting off doing the tree, I'm going to admit it. I'm not 100% sure how successful I'm going to be with creating that. I think I need to find some sponge or something else that I can use to give the tree a bit of body, because obviously I've only got twigs, and if I just put moss on there, it's going to look a bit of a pathetic tree. But I started thinking about my picnic. And obviously a picnic, I want plates, and I've made plates. These are punched out with a circle. I think this one's about 9mm. And what I did is I took my cereal box, and I took advantage of the fact that there are bits that are different colours. I could have gone with the brighter blue, quite handily. This box is blue, but I went with the white because then I figure it will show up anything I decide to put on it quite nicely. Now I need to decide what I'm going to put on these. I'm not necessarily going to use all 7, but I printed a load out, and if I put them on there, I'm not going to have room for all 7, but it gives me some room for manoeuvre. So I'm going to have a think about what I want my picnic to consist of, and I'll come back to you. I have spent quite a while working on my little picnic, and everything is stuck into place. And if I just find my tweezers, I can point out what the various things are supposed to be. I've got some cans of a soft beverage. They're red, they've got white details. You can come to your own conclusions. I've got a very patriotic paper napkin there. I've got some sandwiches. Now the sandwiches were supposed to be cucumber, but the green layer that I put in the middle hasn't shown up very well. I didn't go for a really vivid green because I thought it might look too much. It failed. I've got some sausage rolls. That is sausage meat, normally pork, but it can be vegetarian, that are done cooked in pastry. Very British thing. I've then got some crisps, chips for those of you in the United States. And these are mock bags that I've done in green, because over here a green bag means salt and vinegar flavour, and I think that's very British sort of a thing. We've got some biscuits. These are Jammy Dodgers. They're also known as Anglesey biscuits if you make them yourself, but you buy them and they're Jammy Dodgers. And they are a biscuit, a cookie, which has got some jam in the middle of it. And then these are another kind of biscuit, another cookie, and these are pink wafers. Now, pink wafers are, or were, ubiquitous with children's parties, and I just thought it was quite funny and very, very apt to put them out on my celebratory picnic. And so there it is. Now, all of this has actually been made from copy paper and various markers, some alcohol, some not. I used some silver paint, a little silver paint pen, and a white paint pen to do the canned drinks, but everything else is just paper. And yeah, I think it's going to look really, really good in my little homemade dome. Next job is to crack on with the tree and put a bit of greenery on it. I'm not worrying if the tree doesn't look too healthy. Sort of reminded myself that actually they've been planting a lot of trees for the Jubilee. They're making a green canopy, or attempting to. And so it seems quite apt to have a tree in there. And if it's got a bit of green on it, well, it's better than nothing. I got stuck in and I have stuck some green on my tree. Now, it might not be the most realistic of trees, but to be fair, I'm not going for realism. And I'm actually filming this before the glue has even dried properly, so by the time you next see it, I may have been back and added a few more other bits. But it does at least suggest greenery. I am now going to attempt to get the dome of my diorama in place. And there we have it. Now, you might be wondering what my plan with the foil tray was, because I haven't used it. Well, that's because I've still got something to do, and that is to actually decorate the top and the outside of the jar, and that's the next step. It's actually day 3 of the diorama making, and I'm ready to work on the outside of the jar. Now, I just want to show you, because I've actually added a couple more branches to my tree and I like it a bit better now. I think it was far too sparse before. It's still a bit on the sparse side, but I think that with this one here and another one here, it actually looks a bit more like I want it to. So we're working on the outside of the jar. Now, you may be wondering what I wanted the foil tray for. Well, I actually had a very definite plan in mind with the tray. 10 years ago, for the 60th Jubilee, Diamond Jubilee, is that one? I think it was. I was at an event that wasn't Jubilee themed, but I decided I was going to have a laugh, and I made a crown that I got everybody in our little group to wear and have their photo taken. And I decided that I'm not going to make a crown for people to wear this time. I'm going to make a crown to go on the top of my jar. But I also want to cover up this date stamp and everything on the side. So what I've done for that is I've made a little banner. And what I've done is I went on the internet and I found the official logo, and I printed it out. I actually printed it out at several different sizes, and I'm going to use some Mod Podge in a moment, and I'm going to stick that onto the side. with that on there, it'll still sort of be visible on the inside, but I don't think anybody's going to look that closely. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to work on my crown. Now what I've done is I've actually taken the scissors to the foil tray, and it does just need scissors. You need a good pair of scissors that are fairly sharp, but you can just do it with scissors. And I cut off one of the sides, and I've made it into the base for my crown. And I've got to glue this yet. What I've done is I've actually cut off the edge, the nice neat edge, because it's rather bulky, and I'm going to overlap it like that, and then that will fit on the top of my jar, something like that. Looks a bit like a big pastry cutter at the moment. Now there are some other bits that I've cut from the foil that I'm going to stick onto it as well to make it look more crown-like, but that is the basis of it, and that is, as I say, just the edge of that foil tray. That's why I picked a good foil tray where the edge hadn't been beaten up too much. The rest of it will go into my scraps and will get used at a later date. So we're going to Mod Podge the banner onto the side of the jar, and I'm going to start putting together my right royal crown. I Mod Podged the little banner onto the side, and I am really pleased that with using the Mod Podge on both sides, it's actually obscured the writing more than I expected it to, which is brilliant. And I've got a crown to show you. Now I'm going to actually start off with the bit that goes inside the crown. Now in the case of a real crown, this is so that it fits on your head and you've got somewhere for your the top of your head to go. But I've just done it to fill in the gap, so I'm going to put some hot glue on there, and I'm going to attach this. Now this is another piece of the cereal box with some kitchen towel glued on top, then covered in some purple fabric. I've gone with purple because it's the colour that they've gone for the Jubilee. I just found this offcut of fabric that's in one of my scrap bags. Covered it over, hot glued it onto the back of the cardboard, and then I've just cut another piece that I did go around the edge just to tidy it up, and it just makes it look a bit neater. And then to the bit you've all been waiting for, or maybe not, my crown. So my crown has been glued together, and then I've got two more pieces cut from the actual base of the tray that I've done the sort of crossover loopy bits, and then that is going to go onto there like this, and I think that is going to look pretty damn good. This is only a sort of fun bit, it's not done for any purpose other than I can. So I'm going to just go and figure out where I need to put my glue, and I'm going to get this put in place, and then we'll put it together and I'll add the finishing touch. So the crown is on my jar, my scene is in the jar, and it just needs a little bit of something on the top. Now if you'd got something you could add gems around it, but I haven't really got what I would call scrap, and using anything else would sort of divert from my kind of purpose of making this from basically trash. So I just wanted to put something on it, and I also wanted to add a particularly gothic unicorn touch to it, which is why I've created a little jewel to go on the top out of two beads. A skull bead that I've painted silver, and a little Aurora Borealis teardrop bead that I've glued into the top. So all I'm going to do is I am just going to put a blob of glue right on the top of my crown, and I'm going to put my little skull into position. I'm going to have to do a little bit of clearing up with the hot glue. It is the one thing that I don't like about using hot glue, but my crown has now got a very gothic unicorn top to it. Now, I don't know how well the camera is picking this up because it's quite a awkward shaped piece to deal with, but here is my finished trash to miniature treasure Jubilee decorative diorama scene, whatever you want to call it. It's just my little sort of cool decor piece that I've made. Now I will try and get some better pictures of it so that I will put up over on the Gothic Unicorn Facebook page. I might even take some pictures without the jar in place so that you can get a better look at some of the little details. We'll see how it turns out. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please like, comment and subscribe. Maybe ring that notification bell to let you know when I upload, which is normally every week, mostly on a Friday, but I don't promise anything because such is life. And until next time, bye.